So now like we are going to step into the another concept called as an Jenkins. So what is the need of the Jenkins? So Jenkins is nothing but we call it as an open source automation server. Okay, so like if you just look on the PPT of the Jenkins, you could see I have mentioned like Jenkins is nothing but the open source automation server. Like why we need this open source automation server? So the reason is like so we repeatedly like we will be doing the regression testing. Okay, and what is the purpose of the regression testing? So whenever like some new feature is introduced, like we need to ensure like it is not breaking the existing functionality, or in other hand, like we will be scheduling the regression cases in the server. So why we are scheduling to run the regression cases? Because as part of the regression testing, we are going to run the test cases. So why we are repeatedly running the regression test cases in the sense to ensure the stability of an application, which means it's directly indicates that there is no code breakage. Okay, so how we are ensuring the stability in the sense by repeatedly running the regression scripts, and where we are going to run the scripts in the sense obviously right in the Jenkins. So we are going to run the script in the Jenkins. So in a Jenkins, like we are going to create a jobs, and we can trigger the job manually. Okay, so whenever we required, if you are planning to run the regression test cases, you can trigger the job manually, or else like we can schedule the job. So whenever we schedule the job, like it used to run in the scheduled time on the server. Even if it trigger the job manually, it will run the test scripts in the server. Let's say if you are having like 100 regression test cases, so then it will run the 100 regression scenarios in the server. So how it is going to run in the server? So generally, right, like we are going to configure the GitHub to the Jenkins. Okay, so generally we call this Jenkins as an CI. So what is mean by CI? So CI is nothing but like we are doing the continuous integration. Okay, so why we are doing the continuous integration? So the reason is like to do the continuous delivery. So which means like we are ensuring that there is no code breakage due to introduction of the new code. So we are repeatedly testing the same thing. And how we are going to repeatedly test the same thing? We are going to configure the Jenkins with the GitHub. Okay, so which is nothing but I'm just going to provide the Git link. So whenever we provide the Git link in the Jenkins, so this Jenkins, what it used to do, it will download the dependency from the maven repository, and post downloading the dependency, it will execute the test scripts. Okay, for example, like if you have the 100 scenarios, then it will run all the 100 scenarios, which is nothing but we call it as an AUT. So AUT means the application under test. So once completing the execution, okay, it will generate the graphical reports, and the graphical reports will be shared to the user. So either we can log into the Jenkins and we can view the results, or else we can do some configuration. So whenever some job runs in the Jenkins, post completion of the job, like we will be getting an email notification. Okay, what are the scenarios pass and what are the scenarios fail. So now the role of the automation test engineer is like to monitor the Jenkins as well. Okay, so because like we need to maintain the automation script. If some failure occurs, so if there are 100 test cases, if some failure occurs, you need to analyze whether it is failed due to the automation issue, like kind of a timeout issue, or like no such element exception. If that is the case, you need to provide the fixes. Or in case if the functionality, if it is fails due to the functionality, then we should report to the developers, which means like we need to monitor the jobs regularly. Okay, so we are going to create a jobs in the Jenkins, and how we are going to run these jobs. So generally with the help of the maven commands. Okay, so we need maven commands, and only with the help of the maven commands we can able to run the particular scenarios. So till now, how we are executing these scenarios? So simply we are selecting the feature runner and we are right clicking on it, and then like we are just clicking on the run button. It is triggering the scenarios. So if we have some static tags, okay, in a real time we always have some static tags, so like a kind of a regression test case, etc., and they will be providing the static tag across all the scenarios, so that like in single click it will pick all the scenarios, which is nothing but technically we are creating the test suite. Okay, so we will be generating the test suite, and we are going to create a regression test suite, or even like we can have a multiple test suite as well. So like we can create the regression suite or the a smoke test suite, and which means like we can have the multiple runner as well. So let me just recreate the another runner file as well. Okay, let me have an another runner called as an smoke test runner. Okay, and in which like I'm adding the same configuration what we are having in the other runner file. So let me just add the same level of configuration. The only difference is like in each and every runner we will be having some specific static tag. So like if you have a regression runner, there we will be having some static tag called as an add regression. Here we will be having the static called as an smoke test. Okay, and this tag will be present in all smoke test tag or smoke test cases. Okay, so that like whenever we use this runner, it will execute all the smoke test. So like in similar way we can have the different test suite, and we can invoke any of the test suite. How we are going to invoke any of the test suite? So basically only with the help of the maven plugin configuration. Okay, so in the pom.xml we are going to do some configuration. Okay, so till now like we are running the script directly accessing the runner file, but when we are running in the server, right, how you can right click and run the runner file? Obviously like it should control with the pom.xml, because as per maven this pom.xml is going to act as the heart of the maven, and only in the pom.xml we are doing the needed configuration. So needed configuration in the sense even we are managing the dependencies in the pom.xml in similar way, right? So we need to create a plugins in the pom.xml. So what is the purpose of the plugin? So only with the help of those plugin you can trigger the execution. Okay, so we are going to configure, okay, two types of plugin. So one we call it as an maven compiler plugin, and other we call it as an like maven surefire plugin. So these are the two plugin we are going to add in the pom.xml. So one we call it as an maven compiler plugin, and other is of an maven, okay, surefire plugin. So what is the need of this plugin? So where what is the need of this plugin? Like kind of this maven compiler plugin will compile the code with the needed java version. So whatever the java version we need, so we can run in the java version 17 or 21 or 22, whatever the java version we need, we can configure the respective Java version, and it will compile the project with the respective Java version which we have specified. And what is the purpose of like surefire plugin? So only with the help of the surefire plugin we are going to run the test. Okay, so here we are compiling the code with the respective Java version, and post compiling we are going to do the execution with the help of the maven surefire plugin. Okay, so these are the two plugins we need to configure in the pom.xml. And in order to trigger this plugin, like we will be using the maven commands. So we have discussed one maven command. So what is the one maven command we have discussed already? Like if you remember, like in the maven, if I expand the life cycle, I may have executed this clean command. So what is the purpose of clean command? When I run this clean command, right, it will always clear the temp files which is present in my project, which is nothing but it will delete the target folder. In similar way, we are having multiple other command. So when I say compile, it will compile the project, and when I say test, it will run the project. Okay, which is nothing but it will run the plugin section in the pom.xml, and inside the plugin section we are going to do the necessary configuration. Okay, now let me just copy paste the plugin section which I have already created. Okay, so in my system, like I have already created the plugin section. So let me just copy paste this maven configuration. And if you are interested to learn like how I have created this configuration, so then it is pretty simple. Like you can refer the official web page. So like if you just search with the keyword called as an maven surefire plugin, and if you navigate to the official web page, and there is a section called as an usage. Okay, so there will be a section called as an usage. If you click on the usage tab, so where the configuration which will be available. Okay, so whatever the configuration which I have specified here, okay, so everything I have copied from the official web pages. So you could see they have added the tag called as an build. Okay, so I'm going to add this particular sorry, I'm going to add this particular piece of code in my pom.xml. Okay, so there is nothing big. So whatever which I'm going to add, so everything I have copied from the official web page. Or else, like if you need to know the detailed configuration of the maven, right, so then like you can just refer in my channel. Like I have already posted the detailed videos related to the maven, so where I have explained all the commands which is available in the maven. So just you can search with the keyword called as an LMTI. So then you could able to find this channel, and in which like if you just navigate to the like playlist, and in the playlist there is a section called as an maven tutorial for an automation. So if you just click on this maven tutorial for an automation, so in which like majority of the
Welcome
things
to
we have already
LMTI, the
discussed. Okay, so like we have discussed about how to configure the maven, etc. In addition, like I have explained about the maven coordinates, maven lifecycle, and how we can execute the maven through the command prompt, and how to create the profiles in the maven. So you guys can refer those video, so that it will be helpful when you are planning to use the maven full-fledged in your project. Okay, but now I'm just going to straight away I'm going to add the needed plugin. So why we are adding the plugin, I'm just adding two plugin. One is of a compiler plugin and another is of a surefire plugin. So with the help of the plugin, we are going to run the script. So the compiler plugin will compile the source code, and the surefire plugin will execute the source code. Now let me just copy this section. Okay, and where I'm going to paste, I'm just going to paste it in the pom.xml. So how we have added the dependencies section, in similar way, like we will be creating an another section, okay, called as an build, and in which like we will be having the plugins section, and in which we will be adding the needed plugin. So the first plugin which I have added is like Maven compiler plugin, where I have specified the source and the target, which is nothing but, so it will compile the project in the Java version 21. Okay, whenever we are running in the server, it will be compiled in the provided Java version. And we have added one more plugin, and here I have specified Maven Surefire plugin, and in which there is a tag called as a configuration tag. So generally, in the configuration tag, we will be specified which file we need to execute. So for example, like in the runner, right, we are having the multiple runner. If I need to run this feature runner, okay, so then I can specify over the pom.xml, like in this configuration section, I can include the includes parent tag, and in which I'm adding the child tag and it's called as an include, where we will be providing the appropriate class file which we need to execute. Okay, so now in this case I'm planning to execute this feature runner, so I have provided the name as an feature runner.java, and here I'm mentioning the asterisk symbol. So the reason is like it will scan the file name called as an feature runner.java in the entire project. Okay, so that is the reason I am providing the asterisk symbol. So whenever you're planning to use other framework, let's say if it is of an testng, so in case of a testng or JUnit, instead of the runner file, we will be having the suit XML file. So we will be providing the path of the XML file over here. Okay, so whatever the framework you are going to use, so this Maven configuration is going to be remain same. Okay, so whenever we are executing in the server, we are going to execute only with the help of the maven commands, and the maven commands will always look for the plugin section, and whatever the plugins which is available, based upon that it will trigger the execution. Now I have provided the feature runner. Okay, so now whatever the tag which is mentioned in the feature runner, it will pick the tag and it will start the execution, and this time we are going to execute in the server. So before executing the server, we are going to verify locally, so whether it is working as expected or not. Okay, how we can verify locally? Only with the help of the maven commands. Okay, so now whenever you are adding something new in the pom.xml, so we should always do the maven reload, so that like all the needed plugin will be downloaded to your system. Okay, so now if I click on the reload, so all the plugins will be downloaded, because when you are configuring for the first time, it may throw errors in the artifact id of the maven surefire plugin or the maven compiler plugin. And again I'm repeating, so this section, so I have it copied only from the official web page. Okay, so whatever it is mentioned in the official web page, I have copied, and in case if you need the compiler plugin, so I can search with maven compiler plugin. It will be navigating to the official web page, and if you click on the usage, okay, you will get to know the usage of it. Okay, so all the details I have copied only from the official web page, and even in the official web page they may have mentioned the comment. So if we need to compile the code, then we should use the command called as an mvn compile. So mvn represents the maven. Okay, so if I need to run this clean command, so as a first step, let us try to run the clean command. So if I need to run the clean command, okay, so I should like use the command called as an mvn space clean. So how we can run this command? So basically if we need to execute the command in the IDE itself, like we are having a option called as a terminal. Okay, so just if you click on this terminal, okay, now which is nothing but we are using the command prompt. It's always pointing to the local command prompt. Okay, it will detect the path where our project is present, and then we are going to execute the respective command. Okay, what is the command we are going to execute? So we are going to execute the clean command. If we need to execute the clean command, I should type mvn space clean, and if I click on enter, okay, so now what happened, it will detect the pom.xml in this particular project, and it will read the plugin sections, and it will execute the commands. And this time, like it will clean the entire project. It will take some time because it will understand the code, and it will execute the clean operation. Now you could see it is executing the clean operation. So now you could see like it has cleaned the project, and it says build success, and it has deleted the temporary file. Now if I need to run the program, okay, if I need to execute the runner file, then I should say mvn test. So when I say mv and test, test indicates we are going to execute the corresponding runner file, and whenever we say test, it will look for the maven surefire plugin, and whatever the runner file which we have configured, it will pick that runner file, and whatever the tag which is updated in the runner file, okay, it will run the corresponding tag. Now you could see, so like it is just compiling the project initially, like it is compiling the project with to the Java version 21. Okay, because like we have used the maven compiler plugin, and post compiler plugin is done. Now it is going to run the test. Now you see it has picked the feature runner. How it picked the feature runner? Because in the pom.xml we have mentioned to run the feature runner. Then it will run the feature runner. In the feature runner, the tag called as an LMTI04 will be present. Now it will pick the respective scenario, and it will execute the respective scenario, and post executing, okay, it will generate the corresponding, okay, reports in this particular terminal. Okay, so we can see the output in the respective terminal. Okay, so now how we have executed the script? So we are executing the script only based upon the maven commands. So what is the maven commands which we have used? We have used the maven command to call the sun, like maven test, mvn test. So whenever we say test, it will run the program. So if you need to run the program, so for sure in our system, right, so we should have the plugins, and only with the help of the plugins we are triggering the execution. Okay, so either you can use this terminal, okay, or else what you can do, like you can use the command prompt, and with the help of the command prompt we can run it up. So both are same. So anyhow the terminal is referring to the command prompt, or else like what you can do, so this is the project, right? You can right click, and you can just click on the option called as an open in, and if you click on the explorer, it will be pointing to the project path. Okay, so this is the project path. So this is where our coding is present. So now inside this path we need to run the maven command. Then now what I can do, I can just simply click over the path, and in the path I'm just going to add the command called as in cmd, and if I click on the enter, and it is going to open the same terminal. Okay, so it will open the terminal, okay, which is nothing but in an IntelliJ the terminal is available as an inbuilt. So we can avoid the steps in case if you are using any other IDE. If the terminal is not present, for sure like in all IDE the terminal will be present, but if you are not comfortable with it, then you can open the terminal. Then again you can say mvn, okay, space test. Okay, I'm just typing the command mvn space test, and if I click on enter, okay, it will execute this maven command, and it will refer the pom.xml, and it will point to the plugin section, and it will execute the like kind of the two plugins. One is of a compiler plugin and the surefire plugin. So it will compile the code, and then the surefire plugin will run the code, and it will pick the runner which we have provided, and then whatever the tag we have configured, so it will execute the corresponding tag. Okay, so before configuring everything to the Jenkins, so we should test locally, are you able to run the script with the help of the maven commands? Okay, if you are able to run the script with the maven commands in your local, then for sure like you can able to run in the server as well. Okay, so that is why I'm just testing everything locally. So whatever the output, how the output display in the console, in similar way in the terminal, like it will giving all the outputs. Okay, and even like it will give the reports, where the reports will be shared, stored. We can refer the path, and we can refer the reports of it. Here it is the build is failed because the field is failure, because the test case is failed, and even it says what is the expected result and what was the actual result. So everything it has been captured. So how it will display in the console, in the similar way it will display in the terminal. Even without opening the IDE, you can open the terminal and you can run the scripts. Okay, so now we are all good. So we are able to trigger the execution. Now we have done some certain changes, right? Now what I need to do, I need to open this GitHub desktop, and in which like I need to refer the pom.xml, and this is an another runner I have added. So let's say, let's try to run the smoke test runner. If you need to run the smoke test runner, then what you can do, so you can like change the smoke test runner. But again, right, so if you keep on changing this thing, again it is not going to work out, right? Because we may have a multiple runner, but even we should select the runner with the help of the maven command. So there is an another concept called as an profiling. Okay, we can create a multiple profile. So you can just check out my videos which I have explained about the profiling concept. Okay, so just this is the last concept which I have explained called as an creating multiple profile. So we can create a multiple profile, and we are having some commands to run those profile. So we can run based upon the profile specific. I can create a regression profile, I can create a smoke test profile, and we can run the respective runner based upon the profile. Okay, you can just refer that concept as well. Okay, so now let me just point this smoke test runner, or let it be the feature runner. Okay, now let me review the code and let me just commit it up. Okay, and where we are committing, so this time I'm straight away committing in the main branch. So whenever like we are committing in the main branch, so we don't need to create a pull request, because you are adding the code in the master branch, but in the real time you won't have the privilege to add the code in the main branch. So you should always follow the review and approval process. Okay, so you should create a PR whenever you are making any changes, even it is of a minor changes, like you should create a pull request. So now let me commit this code. I'm selecting the respective file, and let me commit this code called as an plugin configuration. Okay, and let me commit to the main branch. So now whatever the changes we have done, all the changes are available in the main branch. So generally, as I told, like in the Jenkins, like we are going to configure the GitHub. So basically, right, we need to point the main branch to the Jenkins. Okay, so now let's start with the installation of the Jenkins. Like we are going to install the Jenkins locally, which means the corresponding Jenkins can be used only in your system. But when it comes to an projects, right, so in a project, like we will be having the common Jenkins portal, and we will be using the common Jenkins portal. But here I'm just going to do everything locally. Okay, now let's step on to the installation process. So I have mentioned the installation process step by step, but the installation process will be bit differ. Like whenever you need to install something, as I told already, so just refer in the Google, like I can say Jenkins download. So and it will be navigating to the official web page, and I have told multiple times, whenever we are installing any of the software, we should always install the LTS version. So LTS version is nothing but we call them as an long term support. If you scroll to the down, so this is the LTS version which is available, so 2.452.2. Okay, now I'm using Windows, so just I'm selecting the Windows. If I select on the Windows, automatically, right, it will be downloading the exe file, and then we need to start the installation. But here, like the few installation steps are going to differ, so let it get download. I will explain like what is the installation step, or else like I will be sharing this PPT, and even in the PPT, like I have explained like how to do the installation. So step by step the configuration is available in this PPT. I will be sharing this PPT at the end. So even in the real-time project, this is the configuration we will be doing. So only thing, like we will be configuring everything in the Jenkins. If you are able to configure successfully, then you can able to trigger the respective jobs. Okay, so there is no like kind of an technical things which is involved in the Jenkins. So just you need to know what is the purpose of the Jenkins and how to configure the Jenkins. Now let me just go to the download tab. Okay, so already like I have the download version called as an jenkins.msi. Okay, this is the setup file for the Jenkins. how we can download. So if I just double click on it, so it will start preparing the installation menu. Now let me just click on the next button. So I have already installed the Jenkins in my system, so it will throw some error, I guess. So let's try. Okay, so now we are installing the Jenkins to this folder called as an program files, and then I'm clicking on the next button. Now if I click on the next button, here comes the logon type. Okay, so in a project, like we will be having the domain user, so we will be having the common domain and everyone can access the jobs. So whatever the project jobs we are having, we can able to access the project jobs, but here we don't have any domain id. But when it comes to the project, like you will be having the domain id. So the only difference is like when you are installing the Jenkins in the project, in the real-time project, you will be providing your account details and password and you will be testing the credentials. But here I'm just changing the option to run service as a local system. So I'm just configuring the Jenkins in my local. I can use the Jenkins only this local. This URL can be accessed only in my local, which is nothing but we are creating the local host. And let me just click on the next button. If you click on the next button, here they will be having some port number. Okay, so generally have the habit of noting the port number. So the port number will be common for everyone. It will be like kind of an 8080. So don't change this port number, let it be. Okay, because this is the local host URL. And if you click on the test port, okay, in your system, like it will be like kind of an verified, but I have already like verified this port. Okay, so I am unable to re-verify again. So and post clicking on the test port, if you click on the next button, it will start the installation and it will complete the installation. Okay, so that is the difference. So only difference is like you need to click on the test port, and other thing is like here you need to run it as an local system. Now we know what is the port number. So the port number is like 8080. So we should access the port number in your browser. Okay, in any of your browser you can access the port number. So how you will be accessing the local host? So obviously like with the URL called as an localhost colon 8080. So all the details I have mentioned in the presentation. Okay, so now as the next step, so after installing after completing the Jenkins installation, like you need to access this port. Okay, let me just open this port, http colon colon forward slash of localhost colon 8080, which is nothing but this is the port number which have displayed. If the Jenkins is installed successfully, then you may able to access this localhost. Okay, if the Jenkins is installed successfully, then you may able to access this localhost. Okay, so when you are trying to access for the very first time, it will take some time because it will check the presence of the Jenkins. If the Jenkins is present, then it will enable the localhost, and once the localhost is enabled, like you need to log in the Jenkins. So generally, if you are doing for the first time, okay, so we need the initial setup. So we need to configure the initial administrator password. So basically, in the localhost screen, the path for the password will be available. Okay, so now if you just open here, in my system I have already set up the username and password. But when you are trying for the first time, in this place below the username and password, here they will be displaying the path of the password. So where the password is present, where the initial password is present, you can copy that and you can open the path. Okay, so that is what I have mentioned in the PPT. Okay, so copy the content of initial admin file. Okay, so you need to navigate to this particular path where you can able to see the initial admin password and copy the password and click on sign in, and post that like you can reset the password. In the next screen you can able to reset the password. So the username will be anyhow admin, like you need to reset the password and initial password will be displayed in this particular path. You need to navigate to the particular path and then you need to copy the password path, and from the path you will be getting the password, and you need to paste the password, and you need to click on the sign in, and next step it will ask for the reset password. I have already done all the things. So if I click on sign in, it will be navigating directly to the home screen. But once if you guys are doing for the first time, right, after clicking on like the sign in button, it will ask you the option called as an like install suggested plugin. Okay, so you need to click this option. There will be two option, like install suggested plugin or install needed plugin. You can select the install suggested plugin, and you can click on the next button. Okay, so if you click on the next button, it will do all the installation, and it will be navigating to the home page of the Jenkins. Okay, so it will take some time to install all the needed plugin. Okay, post that, like, you can able to access the home screen of the Jenkins. Okay, in my home screen I have already created the jobs, so just ignore about the jobs. But now let's create a new job. So for each and every project we need to create some job. And how you can create the job? We can create the job by clicking on this plus new item. Okay, you need to click on this plus new item. Here you need to create the name of the job. So like it's a regression job or the smoke test job, etc. You need to provide the name. And this job is kind of a maven project, right? You need to select the maven project. But if you are creating for the first time, the maven project won't be available. So before creating the job, right, okay, there is an option called as a manage Jenkins. Select the manage Jenkins, and inside the manage Jenkins, if you scroll to the down, there is an option called as an plugins. If you click on the plugins, so there will be like kind of an three to four options, like kind of an updates, available plugin, installed plugin. Okay, in your case you need to click on the available plugin, but I have already added the plugin. So what is the name of the plugin? So let me just navigate to the installed plugin, and if you look over the name, so it will be like kind of maven integration plugin. Okay, let me, or else like let me search, click over here, and let me search with the keyword called as a maven. Okay, and if I click on the enter, we could be able to see what is the plugin we have installed. So this is the plugin I have installed, maven integration plugin. Okay, so we need to search with the keyword called as an maven integration plugin in the available plugin sections. As I have already installed, so it is already available. And when you are logging for the first time, as you are going to select the option called as an install the suggested plugin, whatever the plugin needed, it will automatically download those. So that is why the installation will take some time. Okay, and after installation you need to navigate to this available plugin, and you need to select this maven integration plugin. Okay, and post installing it, so then you can navigate back to the dashboard. Now if you click on this new item, you could provide some name. So let's say like I'm just providing the name as an LMTI regression suit. Okay, and I'm selecting it as a maven project. Okay, because I'm just going to configure my maven project, and let me click on OK button. If you click on the OK button, right, now it will be navigating to the project setup page. Okay, so which is nothing but we need to configure the git link, and as well as like we need to configure the other relevant informations, like what is the branch we need to run, like in which browser we need to run. So we need to add all the configuration over there. Okay, so it will be navigating to the configuration page. If required, you can add some description. If not, you can navigate to the next option called as an source code management. So where we are maintaining our source code, obviously like all our code is present in the git, so I need to click on the git. Okay, so if I click on the git, I need to provide the git link. So we know like every time we need to provide the git link. So already my GitHub is open. So let me navigate to this repository. How you will be getting the git link? If you click on the drop down, in which we will be having the git link, let me copy the git link and let me paste the git link over here. Okay, now whatever the git link which I have provided now, it is kind of an public repository, right? So when it is of an public repository, we don't need any authentication. But in the real time, so only the authorized person can access this git link, right? So then what they used to do, so they used to provide their credentials. Okay, so we need to provide the credential. So under the credential there is an section called as an add. If I click on the add, so it is having the option called as an Jenkins credential provided. If you click on this Jenkins credential provider, right? Okay, here you should provide your GitHub GitHub ID and the password. Okay, so you should configure the GitHub ID and the GitHub password. Okay, so if I say like kind of a demo, and if I give the password, okay, so you should provide your actual GitHub username and password. In the username section you need to provide your git id, and in the password, like whatever the password you want, you need to provide your actual username and actual password. And if you click, you should click on the add button. If you click on the add button, right, so now if you click on this credential drop down, whatever the credential which I have added, it will be available. But let me just select my actual credential. My actual username is like LearnMore Training, and let me select it up, so that whenever it is trying to access this repo, in case of any authentication, it will use these credentials because I have an authority to access this repo. Okay, now if you scroll to the down, this next option is like it says branches to build. So which branch we need to build? So obviously, right, so if you open the git link, okay, what is the branch which is pointed to? So it is always pointed to the main branch, but in some cases it will be appear as a master branch. If it is of a main branch, you need to provide the name of the branch. Okay, I'm just providing the name of the branches main. Okay, so now this is done. Now next thing is like we need to select the repository browser. Okay, so for time being, let me select the repository browser as an auto. Okay, but in the real time, like we will be having the remote repository browser, so we need to select the appropriate remote repository browser so that like it will access those remote repository browser. But in my case, like we are not having any remote repository browser, let me select as an auto, and let's see how the execution happens. Okay, if there isn't any failure, then we can configure our local browser over here. Okay, let me give it as an auto. And if you scroll to the down, there is an option called as an build trigger. So what is mean by build trigger? So build trigger is nothing but when you are going to run the job. So generally now we are going to create a job, and we need to specify when we need to create a, or when we need to run the job, like when we need to run the regression test case. So when you select this first option, it is like kind of a manual trigger, but there is an option called as an build periodically. If you click on this build periodically, like you can schedule the jobs. So you can schedule the jobs, you can ask them to run on the daily basis, or like thrice a week or twice a week, or in monthly 5 times. Like whatever the configuration we need, we can add the commands over there. Basically, like we are scheduling the jobs, and whatever the scheduled time which we have mentioned over here, it will run the regression test on the scheduled time over the appropriate remote browser. Okay, now if you need to know the commands for scheduling, if you just click on the question mark, okay, they will be giving the commands. Okay, so when we need to run, if you need to run a month, then you should give the keyword called as a month. So likewise, like there are multiple commands, you can refer this comment section, and they may have given many sample examples. Okay, how we need to calculate the run, what are the commands we need to provide to schedule a job, you can refer those comments and you can provide those comments over here. Now let me not run the job periodically. Let me just do the manual build. So I'm just selecting the first option. Okay, and you can just skip this build environment and you can skip this pre-steps, and this is very important. Like we should select the root pom.xml. Okay, we should tell where the pom.xml is present. So where the pom.xml is present, if it access the main branch, right? Okay, so here in the main branch immediately it is not having the pom.xml. The pom.xml is present inside this alpha refactor code. Okay, so it is present inside this alpha refactor code, and which means like we need to provide the path. So initially it will identify the repo path, and inside the repo this is the project name. Then we should specify the project name slash of pom.xml. Okay, so we should specify the project name slash of pom.xml. Okay, so that like it will run the pom.xml, because like we need to run the pom.xml, because only with the help of the pom.xml we are triggering the run, where we will be providing the comments, so which we call it as a goals and option. So in this place we are going to provide the maven comments. Okay, so what are the maven comments which we have learned? We have learned about the clean and the test. So I am going to use the two commands called as an clean. Okay, so before executing any scenarios, so it will clean the code, it will remove all the temp files, and if I say test, it will execute the script, which is nothing but it will refer to the plugin section with the help of the maven's surefire plugin. Whatever the runner file is configured, it will run the appropriate test in the server. Okay, here you don't need to use the keyword called as an mvn space clean and test, because it know it is going to execute the maven command, so you can just provide the command directly. Okay, only in the terminal like we need to provide mvn space clean test. So when I say clean test, initially it will clear the temp files and then it will execute the coding. So that is the reason I have provided the clean test. And if I scroll to the down, okay, there is an option called as an email notification. As I told, if we have provided the recipient details, so whenever it is running the job in the server, so completing the jobs, it will trigger the mail notification to the corresponding users. So it will give the clear cut report, so how many scenarios are pass or how many scenarios are fail. Okay, so we can look through the mail, or else like we should log into the Jenkins daily and we need to monitor the health of the application. So if the regression scenarios are working as expected, then we can say the health is good. If there are many more frequent failure, then we need to understand so whether it is due to the application issue or the automation issue. If it is of an automation issue, we need to provide the fixes. So we need to provide the fixes as part of our maintenance activity. So we are using the framework, so not only to run the code but also to maintain the existing script. So that is why we are refactoring everything in the page object. So whenever there is some failure, if it fits in one particular point, the fixes will be applied to all scenarios. So that is why we are categorizing everything in the form of an page object, and we are adding as a reusable method. So whatever the handling mechanism we need, so we are injecting those reusable method in the appropriate page object. If we provide fits at one point, if the same method is accessible in many scenarios, then the common fits will be applied to the n number of scenarios. Okay, so we should maintain the maintenance activity. Okay, we should maintain our stability of the code, or we should say we should maintain the health of the application. Okay, so now in the post build action, right, even we can generate the report inside the Jenkins. So here they will be by default, they will be configuring the Cucumber reports. If I click on this Cucumber report, by default the Cucumber reports will be generated. Now if I click on the save button, right, automatically a job will be created. So what is the name of the job? It is LMTI regression suite. Okay, now if I click on build now, okay, it will build the project. So which is nothing but, as I mentioned in the flow diagram, it will connect to the GitHub, it will download the needed dependency, and it will run the application. Now if you see, if once I run the build now, it is creating the new build. Okay, so just if I click on this build number, okay, we could be able to see what is happening in this particular line. Okay, so likewise here we will be having the console output. If I click on the console output, we can able to see what it is happening. Okay, which is nothing but it is trying to access the git link, and from the git link it is trying to download the required coding inside the Jenkins, and post downloading the respective coding, it will execute. Okay, if you see, it says executing maven, and in the project it is executing the pom.xml, and it is running the command called as an clean and test. Okay, so it will scan and it will identify the respective runner, and it will run the clean test. Okay, as we have tested everything locally, so even inside the Jenkins it should work as expected. Now you could see it says downloading from the central, which is nothing but like initially the jar files are not present in the Jenkins, right? So it will download all the jar files and it will place in the Jenkins. So how we are downloading and place the jar files in our .m2 folder, in similar way, like it will download the jar files and it will place all the jar files inside the Jenkins, so that the Jenkins can utilize those jar file and it can run the appropriate coding. Okay, so that is the reason it is downloading everything. So now it has run the clean code, and it will run the compiler plugin, and post that like it will run the Sureflow plugin, and it is compiling the code with the Java version 21. Okay, because like we have provided the source and the target to the 21, whatever the Java version which we have specified in the respective Java version, it will compile the code, and post compilation it will execute the corresponding code. Okay, so the execution is nothing but we are trying to like execute the code with the help of the Maven Surefire plugin. So it will take some time because it is running the job for very first time. It will download all the needed dependency inside the Jenkins. Now moving forward, when we try to run in the other run, so as already the dependencies are present, so it will refer the dependencies and it will start the execution immediately. Okay, so now in our case, like the execution will fail because we don't have any remote browser. So that's the reason like my scenario will get failed. Okay, so now it is still executing the coding, but it will fail. Let it get run.
So Arvind, that configuration activity is one time or we need to do every time?
It's a one time activity. In a projects, for sure they will be having this plugin section, they will be done all the configurations. It's kind of an one time activity. Okay, so now if you notice, it is triggering the test. Okay, so now how it is triggering the test, it will identify the feature runner. So why it is referring to the feature runner? Because in the Surefire plugin we have provided the path of the feature runner. Now if you see, like it has picked the respective tag, and then it will start executing the corresponding scenario. But now, right, what happened? So we don't have any remote browser, then it will throw the exception called as an, okay, no such session created exception. So what is mean by session created exception? So session created exception means it is unable to start a new session, which is nothing but it is unable to like trigger the run in the web browser. So that is why it says the session not created exception, because we haven't configured the remote browser. But in the real time, we will be having the remote browser, and where the grid execution will happen. So where the parallel execution will happen. So generally, like they will be using many remote browser, in which like most famous one is like sauce lab. So what happened in the sense, here I am using the only one tag called as an LMTI04, But in the real time we will be having some common tag. If I say regression, there may be like 50 test case or 100 test case, and how the execution will occur. So if we execute one by one, the for sure like it will take some time to complete it, right? So it will do the parallel execution, and where we will be doing a grid setup. So grid setup is nothing but there will be an option called as an like set the invocation count. Okay, so we should set the invocation count. If I say invocation count is 10, parallelly 10 scenario will run remotely. If I say invocation count as 20, so the 20 test case will run parallelly. Okay, so you don't need to worry about the configuration of the grid. So basically in the project for sure they will be having the remote browser. We are going to select the remote browser, so generally the remote browsers are acting as a grid. So only thing is like we will be setting the invocation count. So what is meant by invocation count? So invocation count is nothing but the number of instance which we need to trigger. If I say 10, so parallelly 10 browser will execute. If I say 20, so the 20 browser will be executing. Okay, but here as I don't have the remote browser, it is trying to detect automatically. But what happened? Even like none of the browser is available, it's throwing the error called as a session not created exception. Now I can avoid this session not created exception by placing the appropriate driver inside my project. Even I can avoid this exception by placing the driver inside my project. But in the real time, for sure like they will be having the remote browsers, so you won't face any errors. It will automatically run the script. Even here it is able to detect the appropriate scenarios, which means the configuration is correct. Okay, and also like we have tested locally, and it's executed locally, which means it indicates like we can able to run the same code in the server as well.
Do we need to install? Do we need to install the Jenkins on our local machine, or we can use a cloud
Mm.
machine also?
So generally we should install locally, but in
Hmm.
project you will be having the cloud version. So that is what I told when you are installing the installation. So we have seen the second options, right? So installed by the domain access. So when I say click on the domain access, it is accessing the cloud. Okay, so we will be using the cloud one. But here I don't
Okay.
have any
Thank you.
cloud, so just I'm using my local instance. So this is the actual process which we follow in the real time. So whenever like some new build happen, okay, for example, whenever some new auto schedule run happen, for each and every run, some build number will be generated. And as an automation test engineer, you need to frequently like refer the latest build, and you need to check is there is any error or not. Now I'm just triggering the build number 2. Okay, so post execution it will be having the reports, or else like if you click on the cucumber report, it will be having all the reports like kind of fail or total number of test case pass or failure, etc. Even like you can filter by the tags, or you can filter by the steps. Okay, you can see like how the execution occurs and what is the reason of the failure. Okay, so everything will be captured over here. Okay, so we can easily verify the reports inside the Jenkins. Okay, so even whenever there is a failure, we can just open the console. If you just click on the build number, even inside the build number we will be having the console. Like we can view the output in the console, or else like inside which we will be having the cucumber reports. We can click on the cucumber reports, or if you click on the test results, so even like it will give the detailed information. Okay, so we can get all the information related to the respective build by clicking on the build number. And if you have a scheduler, so then it will be automatically run this job in the scheduled time, and for each and every run we will be having the separate build number. And whatever the scripts which is present over here, it will run in the appropriate remote browser, and post execution, so the reports will be generated, and the reports will be shared over the mail if you have enabled the mail configuration. Or else like you need to log in the Jenkins, and you need to verify the result inside the Jenkins. So the role of the automation test engineer is like to monitor the jobs of the Jenkins as well. On the daily basis, we need to monitor the jobs. So why we are monitoring the jobs? So just to ensure that there is no code breakage, or we can say like our automation script is stable, as well as we can say our application is stable. So that is the reason we will be regularly monitoring the jobs in the Jenkins.